S-onguiwul was Jamui. Anyap Jugit, Juan Buendia, Kamskuriwasik Kihim, Kamskuriwasik Jukshan. My name is Juan Buendia. I come from the Sales Community, Sales District on the Thana Nation, and it is 100% a pleasure to be here with you all. I know initially when Mr. Lee reached out, I was kind of contemplating more or less what I wanted to kind of put together, because I'm asked on different occasions to kind of talk about the game, give some information, do some demonstrations, host different types of tournaments and so on and so forth. So it's been over about 13 years of different teachings, different lessons, different instances where I've been in places that I've truly been honored to take in information, to understand, and definitely try to pass that on. I've had, I think, this little guy in this photo, he's now at ASU. He's like 18, 19 years old now, and it really blows my mind when I think about how time flies. But I really want to say what I wanted to talk about genuinely, not only the game and some of the instances that I've been taught, but genuinely where and how we can utilize the teachings, the understanding, and kind of move into a real different mindset when it comes to how we're engaging with one another, basically giving the young men and the men that are engaging with this game and learning the tradition and understanding ways and means in what they do in their community and how they act and how they portray themselves. I will say, because of so much Western influences, I think that we tend to think of different things in how we should be and who we should be. So just to take it back a little bit, 13 years ago or so, I was 100% a very different person, and I think we all were, for sure. The instance that I was asked, and not asked per se, it was a group of individuals in sales, or in the sales area, that started to have this genuine conversation about S-onguiwul, about the game, about men's traditional games. And truthfully, all I knew was games at the time, because I thought that that's what I knew, and I didn't know that there were other instances that we could look to as a young man growing up, that could carry on my culture, my heritage, my tradition, my people, my understandings. So that kind of kicked off overall what the journey was, growing up, really trying to understand how we were going to work with the recreation centers on the Thana Nation, build this entire league, so to speak, create teams, get them to create their own balls out of source material. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, but just to share, I want to say this ball right here is probably the very first ball that our team from sales started using 13, 14 years ago. So it's got a lot of divots, a lot of blood on it, a lot of different things that really genuinely I try to share, especially with the young men, about the importance of not only taking care of the game pieces, but understanding that it isn't about doing those things, but going through those things that actually really gives you the understanding of why. Now, when we started to talk about how are we going to re-engage this long-standing tradition and bring it back, at the time, I can tell you, a lot of these little boys didn't want to take their shoes off, did not want to touch their feet to the ground. But I think that kind of goes with anything, and I think especially for the younger ones who are generally like that anyway, because I know I never wore shoes when I was growing up, found a place where they felt more comfortable. I think that started the overall conversation, not the overall, but the overall safe space, if you want to call it, for young men to feel like, yeah, I can take my shoes off, I can run around and do this, and at the same time re-engage with who I am, learn what different communities were doing and how different parts of the Tohono Nation, as big as it is, learn their stories, learn who and what I would say the big superstars in their community were, because there were some stories of individuals who could throw the ball super far, or were really fast, or always won whatever challenges that they were kind of put in front of them. And so when we began the leagues 13 years ago, there really was a huge influx of teams just from across the nation. It was really something to see. This was probably one of the first tournaments that we had in sales, and this was teams from across the nation. And I want to say our sister tribes did attend, but it probably wasn't until a little bit later when we kind of got more of a footing. The traditional games leagues, again, was trying to not only, of course, and I will say with all 100% due respect and honor, you know, our women's games, our Toka games, so ingrained into how they have begun, or how they've just been sustained over the years. And so to have something that I think that the men or the young men could look at in a sense of pulling themselves up and out of, I would say nothing, because I feel like that's where probably I was in the mindset, is how it definitely made me feel a lot more closer to my culture, my heritage, my ancestry. My family, I'm half O'odham. My father's from Mexico. My mother is full-blooded Tohono O'odham. She was born in Aho. We're enrolled in the sales district. But I will say, in my experience over my lifetime, there has been a definite change in the overall atmosphere of the community, and I'm sure that that's true for everyone. But over the course of the years, taking on not only mentoring, but learning, being coached, all of those things, hearing from different members of the community, and I have to go without saying, like Mr. Mikey Enos, even Mr. Lee here, the Davis brothers, Gulk, and all of them, they really genuinely gave and poured a lot of themselves, a lot of all of ourselves, into how do we engage? How do we make it so that there's some semblance of who we have been, where we're coming from, and what we're going to do to continue the path forward. A lot of communities that had come to partake in the games, again, as far as S-onguiwul goes and all of the game pieces and everything else that I kind of explained, genuinely had to come from where you were living. And again, there's so many different instances of how the game came to us, how it was played, and what we did to actually engage with nature and the elements. But above all, one of the things that I always took away from was the community members that did come together and did share. Were always willing to. These are elders that had experienced probably some of the last big games that they were going to see in their lifetime. The biggest one that was shared with me was in 1934 from one of the villages in Sales, which was about a 13-mile race. Now, so many of the members of the community and so many of those teams that came together really tried to figure out how they were going to make their game piece. So I've seen a couple of game pieces here in the center, full on made of rock, covered in creosote, covered in sap, covered in all these things. And those types of game pieces actually did start to emerge from the communities that were starting to build teams. And so I never played with them. I stuck to the mesquite balls that we had. But to really see that engagement between those teams and how they wanted to have something that was theirs, and play with the way that the ball, because some of them, like these, were like a little misshapen, not misshapen. I think that it takes its shape as it's supposed to, but you learn how to flick it differently. You learn how to maneuver with it. And so all of that, going back into what I kind of want to touch on a little bit more of, is whenever I'm asked to do any kind of demonstration or present to children, or especially take the young men aside, I try to really engage with the fact that much of what we do, much of what we're doing, is reminding them of their place, reminding them that they have to respect certain things. Men are only allowed to touch the game pieces, the same as women's pieces, game pieces, they're only allowed to touch those things. And some of them at the first point take it in a negative aspect, as you would say, well, why can't I touch it? You know, asking the questions that a normal child would ask. But then you kind of get into the fact that it's not about not being able to. It's about respecting that this is theirs and this is yours, and you are responsible now for making sure that you're taking care of this. This is a part of your team. It is a part of who you are and where you will come from. You'll take it there and you'll bring it back. So it really didn't dawn on me that a lot of the kids walked away with the fact that they kind of felt empowered. And I know that because they would share, we have our own now, or we can do this. And it really also really genuinely impacted me when they are, as a team, because when you go to different tournaments and you go to different areas where you're playing the game, there might be different rules, there might be different stipulations that to get from point A to point B, you can't go outside of the playing field, or if you do, you're going to start back at point A and have to go back to point B. So there was a lot of different things that I think that we, as the coordinators, or anyone as a coach, as a mentor, really tried to engage with the youth to say, we're not putting barriers in front of you. What we are asking you to do is think outside the box about how you, your team, and your team member, your S-onguiwul, are going to get there. And how are you guys going to get back? Some of the courses were not more than a mile. Some of them were less than a mile. Some of them were about 4 miles. So it really depended on where we were and what we were going to do it. But I will say, in all the years that I've been hearing different stories, learning different techniques, sharing as much knowledge as I could about it, there had always been different instances where one community would stand out above the other. And it's not for any reason other than they could throw the ball really well, or they actually worked really well as a team. So when having these discussions with the youth and having these discussions with these young men, it's really interesting to think about the same way we would talk about professional teams or professional basketball, baseball, whatever it may be. I always ask them to look at themselves in that sense of, you yourself are the professional teams. You guys yourselves have to think about who's coming up against you. And so it's really neat to be in the van and to hear the kids, watch them looking for who's actually showing up to the games and know, oh, that's the guy. I know how he plays. He's actually going to do this. And later on, hearing them actually really engage with one another about, all right, I know you're not that fast, so what I need you to do is run. I'm gonna throw, and then we're gonna catch up to you. Again, talking about how not only are we looking at just the game of it all, but giving that sense of understanding to the youth and to the men about working together, strategizing, communicating with one another, learning what the other one can or can't do, and not looking at it in a bad way and saying, I don't want to play with him, he's not fast. Hey, I know you're not that fast, you go first. That way we'll catch up to you, and then we're gonna go from there. Those types of instances really do go far and beyond. I think what the game per se has kind of brought back, and I'm really proud to say that a couple of my nephews, I don't know if they're in here, no, I don't think so. A couple of my nephews who were probably about 5 or 6 or 7 at the time are now, 18, 19, have their own jobs, and do come back to actually play whenever we have tournaments or any kind of instance to get together. And they're the ones sharing those things. They're the ones telling the little ones, or the ones that are interested, or the individuals who come through, about not only what they've learned and what they know, but how and where to actually strategize in those types of instances. I've played here before. It gets really rocky right there. You guys are going to want to make sure you're doing this to get over it. So when the discussion that come up generally, sorry, I took some notes. I think the mental aspect of the game genuinely had really, for me, clicked with them. And I will say, for full, transparent, just to be very honest, in those years between 2013, 14, and 15, and 16, there was a huge influx and a huge resurgence, which really felt really amazing. After those years, it kind of fell off again. And I don't equate that to anything other than not only myself, but I think a lot of us started to come into our lives before, in these years. I didn't have any children. I have 3 children now. So life takes its course. You start to do things that, I can't get to the games all the time, but these balls, all of them, continue to play without me. They continue to be on the teams with my family, my brother, my cousins, my nephews. All of them continue to do and try to keep moving. And so when I was asked, what is it that we can actually take away or learn from in any kind of instance, whether it's the game or whether it's learning about our culture, our heritage, our traditions, I feel like genuinely when we had any kind of difficulties, we had any kind of hardship or any kind of lessons to actually kind of take away, that probably set us up for a really good understanding of how to get through it, how to maneuver, how to really understand that we're not just flicking a ball and hurting our toe or running around. We're testing ourselves, giving ourselves some strength and some understanding that in the years that we've been playing, there's probably been thousands more years where someone has done that before us. Someone has come through or run through the same exact area and has these same experiences. So reviving the game genuinely was and has been, I think, at the forefront of not only my agenda, but my wishes and hopes. But where I currently work now, and just to kind of go through myself, sorry I didn't do this. I work for the Native American Advancement Foundation. It's a grassroots foundation out of the Wopoicuda community from Wopoicuda district members. which is the west side of the nation, of Thanatam Nation, if you're not familiar. And I live on the east side of the nation. So it's an entirely different understanding and ways and means of people, community, livelihood. It's far away from services. It's the most rural you could probably get, even though it's not as rural as most. But what I will say is that long-standing influx of what are we going to do if we start and keep losing much of ourselves as Autumn has genuinely been, I think, the foundation and the forefront of where organizations or program managers or even people right off the street have been really trying to press to do. And I will say, even though during the years of COVID, of course, we weren't playing the games, we weren't doing all those things, and we did lose a few really significant individuals that I feel had really played a pivotal role in trying to revive the game. There are still many of us that are trying to do so. So I know that there's always been interest in, well, how do I get involved, and what can I do, or where can I play? I've always tried to leave an open door when it comes to whenever we're hosting tournaments, sending out information, putting out my personal number if we're ever doing anything. But I think that for the most part, a lot of the coordinators of different like traditional games like Toka, I know the Muchita actually does include S-onguiwul tournament at the same time as they're doing the Toka tournaments. So there are those efforts that I can see are being really, really substantial in how we're going to continue to move forward. But I think that the inspiration for wellness, for community gathering, the inspiration for the teachings that these young men can walk away with has really definitely had an impact, I feel like, on where we're going to continue to go. So I think in overall, just to kind of touch back again on the game pieces, some of these, and I will talk about real quick, different tournaments that we've had or different instances where we've challenged other communities. When the games were at their height on the Thanatam Nation several years ago, of course, we started to engage in the betting process. And there was a lot of instances where not only was it a way to really press or impress on the guys that, hey, this is a really important game, and we're gonna want to try and put all of our effort into it. But what I will say is that teaching or that understanding or that knowledge is something that for millennia before us was definitely something that motivated communities, motivated everyone to really engage in watching the games, cheering for the games, picking a team, and giving them effort, spirit, good things. Back to this game here. I know one of the times that we were actually running back and forth and betting, there was a couple of instances where, I was talking earlier about how the boys would look out for who's actually there and who's running and who they could beat and so on and so forth. And I remember in this instances, we used to play beginning of September, middle of September, which is still hot, very hot. And a lot of the guys, just to kind of give you some insight into what they were thinking, was a lot of them started to think, all right, I want to play, I want to get to the end of the games. So whether the ground was rough or hard or whatever it was, they started to learn how to, whether it was coating their feet in mud or doing different things. But back to that instance where they had to learn how to help one another or to be with one another or to understand one another was when we were playing, and they would notice those guys are putting stuff on their feet because I know this hurts. And this was one of the more rocky fields that we had played on. So there was little pebbles everywhere. And so they were coating their feet, and so everybody starts coating their feet. And what they didn't realize is that when they were doing that, it does feel good, but they started to actually forget, like not forget, but kick the ball as opposed to flick the ball. So there went toenails, there went, split toes and all of these things. And to me, when they really rallied around each other, because they knew they were hurting, but they also knew this last game is going to be the most important. This last game is where we really had to work together to figure this out. And somewhere someone had black electrical tape. And so they went and they grabbed black electro tape. They're over there taping their feet. I'm like, what are y'all doing? What is going on here? We're going to win. We're going to play. We're going to do this. And I know that we definitely wanted to make sure that everybody was okay. But for them, it wasn't about like that they were hurting. It was about the fact that they didn't want to let the team down. They didn't want to not be involved in winning whatever that prize was going to be, or participating in how they were going to win whatever that prize was going to be. And so I remember this last game here at this time it was an all-out. They were going back and forth for a very long time. It wasn't a very long track, but it was up and back maybe 3 or 4 times. I want to say 4 times. And so that was really impactful. So by the end of that, they walked away with not only all the winnings, but then they all sat down and actually, we had a lot of elder men who would come out and, remind them about taking care of themselves. And granted, they also wanted to see how the overall challenge was going to be, but taking the ball, rubbing it on wherever they were hurting, and giving them, the understanding and the mindset of not only are you pushing yourselves, but you're pushing the ball with you. And so there was a huge, it was really a sight to see. And I will say, that instance in that game probably will never leave me, but I know that a lot of those kids now, many of them were from Bisinma'a or Arichuk, Gubal area, and they still talk about it. Even when I see them now, they're grown up, they have little brothers or little cousins, they still run up to me. Do you remember that time in cells we were playing the games and all of these things? I'm like, yes, absolutely do. I'll never forget it. Y'all were complete beasts. But I'm hopeful that continuing to have conversations or just continuing to press on the collaborations that we can between either our sister tribes or our districts or anything else that we may be able to do, is that they are continuing to have that conversation with one another. We're continuing to impress and give them some sense of identity. I think that on my other side of what I do, I'm actually a school board member for Barbecue Unified School District, which is a district that services much of the Tohono Nation. And we do have to try and figure out like that identity portion of who we are as O'odham or as an individual in the land or the people really plays a significant part in how we're going to not only treat ourselves, but treat the people that are in the community. And so I've really tried to really engage in the youth and impress with them that this is more of what you're going to do to not only take care, and there are some portions of the games, or not the game, but the teams where a team member would actually be responsible for the ball. Responsible for the game piece, responsible for the S-onguiwul, would have to take it home, would have to take care of it, keep it away from their little sisters, keep it away from everyone else, talk to it, sing to it, whatever you needed to do. And then they had to really understand that that was not just us saying, do this to an inanimate piece, but after splitting your toe or hurting yourself or running through the entire game over the course of a day with your game piece really showed them again that I have more in me than what others maybe see or whatever I've seen in myself. So I've really been honored, I think, especially to be able to say that when there is or we have an opportunity, that we're able to really kind of continue to press that on the youth and give them some understanding. And some men who've actually come now, older gentlemen who maybe saw, maybe heard, because I feel like, especially with how much information and things that we're thrown at us now as a people or as an individual in the world, the more that we can continue to understand the significance of our heritage, significance of where we are, the better off that we're going to be. So I'm genuinely really always impressed with those opportunities that we might have, whether it's in education or whether it's in generally just building someone who's going to be a good community member, giving them ways and means to understand who they are and where they come from, so that they're not taking it off of whatever social media or whatever media outlet that they're taking in, and finding that, you know, I can and actually do have a long-standing understanding of my land, my community, who was here and who actually did. And they actually did have really intense understandings of the land, the people, not the people, but the materials around them, and what to do with them. So again, I want to say, as far as my understanding and the way that I've been able to be blessed to be a part of the entire effort, truly is a really small portion of how much and how well I've seen everyone else come together. A lot of different men, elders in general, and so on and so forth, that had a lot of wealth of knowledge, a lot of understanding. I remember when we first started, we went out and we cut down a few trees, and tried to figure out how do you actually make inform these out of what's around you. And I think it was over the course of like 3 days, we were hacking at a big old piece of mesquite wood, trying to learn, trying to understand how this was actually going to work. But I think that genuinely was where it came down to, this is how we learn. You know, we trial, we error, we try different techniques. We knew somehow, some way they were making these in the past. How would they do it? What kind of, and that led into a huge other network of individuals who said, I gave a lot of different tips and a lot of different recommendations. I think for the most part, again, it's what built the entire team to say, you know, all that 3-day hard work that we did, this was the outcome of it, and this is how it's gonna, this is what we have to bring. And now we're gonna use it, we're gonna play with it, we're going to engage with it. So I think that overall, my little contribution to the overall effort has been just to be available, especially whenever asked to do a demonstration. Again, as I'm working on the west end of the Tohono Nation and traveling in between, there are a lot of youth who still want to play. They see it as not just something to play, but something to engage in, and something to really pull themselves out of whatever situation that they're in. Because I know that, especially in the instance that we're dealing with youth who are not in the best situations at home, definitely always want to have and find something that they can do. And this is part of the reason why whenever they ask if we can play, we always try to put a tournament together, try to put a little team together, try to have something, because for them, that semblance or that camaraderie or the men that actually come together gives them a sense of, all right, I'm being taken care of, or I know what I need to do, or I'm going to learn more about who I am and what I'm doing. So it is one of the things that I feel like truly so many more people have come and actually really given a lot of effort to it. I'm super honored again as well to be asked to speak about any of it. But for myself, in the sense of what I've been able to take away, has definitely been that the overall significance, bringing together individuals, building bonds between the men or the young men or any individual inside of the community, was where it probably saved me from a lot of different things that I was going to get involved in that weren't going to be good. So I'm hopeful that if we continue to have and foster this type of mentality, that we will have men who will stand up and actually be able to take care of things that they need to, and that they will know that their responsibility or the encouragement is there from other men who have maybe likewise felt that they needed that semblance of someone, a male figure, to be able to say, here's why you respect women and what they do and how they do it. And here's why you, as a member of the community, are asked to do these things for your community. Here's why, and it's not an issue, or it's not like they're being asked too much. They know to some degree where they fit into that overall cycle or overall environment that we're trying to create. I think the discipline, the resilience, all of those things that the kids put themselves through, and I say the kids because it's mostly kids who actually want to be able to participate, but following any of the games, we do sit down and do have a little bit of a roundabout discussion about not only what they felt like they got away from it, but also where and if they have anything that they want to talk about. I know that most of them don't want to talk about anything, but at the same time, we still leave that space at least for them to be like, okay, you know, I do feel like I can speak about something, or I can talk about something. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful as a member of the Thon-Ottom Nation, or as the O'odham tribes in general, that it starts to chip away at some of the individualistic mindset that I think I've been able to see over the course of the few years. And it builds on that action of community. I don't know if there's any other way to say it. It really does pain me sometimes to see how much there is such a division, and I know a lot of the course of what we've gone through over the course of the past 4 years helped to drive that further. But I think for the sense of where we're at, and the many individuals that are going to be able to come here, speak to you all, or speak in general, starts to chip away at that. And I really, really am excited to be genuinely a part of it. So, yeah, I think that's really all I have. I don't know if there's any questions, anything else that I can dive a little more into. Please, if anything. Yes.
Hi, Leonard Bruce. I'm originally from here in District 4, Montana.
Oh.
One of my questions, I'm wondering, for folks who are not familiar with the game, could you describe it a little bit of how to play and kind of where it comes from in our history?
Yes, absolutely. I think over the course of the years, when we were talking about how to re-engage with the game, it definitely was a lot of different stories, of course, oral traditions as they come and as they may. I had heard a lot of different creation stories, a lot of different stories about where the ball actually came from and how it was given to us. So I don't want to dive really hard into that, only because I don't, I don't want to misspeak. However, what I will say, the game itself, which I think generally, a lot of the kids call it kickball. You don't want to kick this thing, trust me. But in the distances between communities and villages, and what we were told and understood is that, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, community and engaging and gathering everybody, is harvest time would come, we'd all go to a certain community, and I'm thinking of different communities on the Donaldo Nation because that's where I'm from. Santa Rosa Village. Santa Rosa Village, if you're familiar, used to host a lot of different traditional ceremony, a lot of different types of instances or gatherings after harvest, rain ceremonies, so on and so forth. And as everyone was gathered together, we needed something to do or something to actually engage with. A lot of the gifts and the things that we brought together were different types of, you want to call them pastimes, but different types of games. So the object of the game generally is, what we're playing is you're utilizing the ball. You could have a team of as many as 5 to 7, 2 to 3, 1 if you really wanted to challenge yourself. And we generally had about a pool of about 6 teams, give or take. So we kind of do like a round robin challenge of each of the teams, and set a course, I guess, if you will. Depending on where we were in the communities, it would, like I said, either be a mile, half a mile, less than a mile, quarter of a mile, some of them longer than others, and then stipulations for the games were different between community to community. So if a community drew their course and said you couldn't step out of the line, that really depended on. Now, when you're talking about stepping out of the line, does that mean as a member is playing, are they throwing the ball with their foot and falling outside the line? Is that a disqualification? So we'd have this whole big old conversation before any of the games just to kind of really understand. But in that aspect, we would have to, again, strategize, learn how are we going to actually navigate running this, because there's this rule that if the ball falls out of the line, then we have to restart the entire game. So a lot of the teams really had to kind of understand where they were going to, where they were and what the rules were actually going to be. The first rule I know that we definitely wanted to make sure we understood was that this ball was a part of the team. This ball can't be thrown and can't be left by itself. This ball doesn't, once you throw it across the line to finish, everybody plus your ball has to be across the line to finish. And I really wish I had some of the videos, because I know I did have some videos of some of the games we had played. One second, sorry, one second. So we had a lot of the games we had played where you would see the guys actually relaying the ball. So depending on how far we were going, if you had a team of 5, everyone would get together and say, okay, I'm going to run ahead. I'm going to throw the ball to you. You throw the ball from there, and it would go on and so forth from there. So those different, I guess, iterations of how you were going to play really depended on the field that you were going to play on. I don't know, I'm not doing a really good job, but if it really depended on where you were and how you were going to do it, and then the material that you had in your community or your village that was actually going to be utilized. There's a lot of mesquite balls. I've seen some Palo Verde, which is very light, which is very difficult to play with. Ironwood, lava rock, again, covered in different types of sap, creosote, all of those things. was really impressive to actually see some of the communities out in Guwa or Arichuk play with those balls, throw them as far and as hard as they could, and actually get them. It was impressive to say the least. But just to give you a real brief little insight of how the games are actually played. Again, it just really depended on where you were, but for the most part, your team and the ball stuck together and navigated the course and either went up and around and back, or some of the fields actually went around and connected to the other side. So you wouldn't actually do an up and back, you do a whole course around. But again, I hope to share some videos, but that was my fault for not having the thumb drive. I'm sorry. Go ahead. You got a question?
Can I hold that ball?
You can hold the ball, yes. Again, only males are allowed to hold the balls. Just be careful, don't drop it, don't put it anywhere, don't just take care of it. Huh?
Just the light.
Yes.
And 1 second.
Any other questions?
Excuse me.
Yes.
How do you pronounce it?
Either. The S-onguiwul. Oh. And again, if you're here, it's S-onguiwul, but where I'm from, S-onguiwul. Nothing's wrong. It's all the same thing. But yeah. Oh. Yes, ma'am.
Just say that those were carved out of the mesquite tree.
Oh, these are all mesquite. Yeah. Yes.
How do you do it your way?
That's
How do you do it your way? Because I know a lot of different ways. I'm
The
a fighter, so I know I'm a worship, but I'm coaching. I put a little Dishon worship right now, so I'm coach. But I'm always worship, so I can X amount to the point it was a good game. That's in games become a problem with us. Because where I'm from, Santa, it's different because us it's either gun, blood, money, or drugs. The problem with that is because my grandpa, Governor Zeus, even as our 35,000, because what happened with our gaining and shit. But this is what you need to understand. When we were there, my niece Cherish, that's the reason why 3.7 shot at that cop, because she was beating up Cherish, trying to kill her. And the Bloods thought we were trying to do that, but the problem was with that cop that you guys had. Sheriff Joe Pyle was kids. That's why I already know what I did when I killed the task force, so. And that's why I have my hands are registered and I can't go anywhere until I'm evaluated.
Oh. Did you have a question?
That's just the question.
Oh, okay. No worries.
Is that we were late when they didn't get to the first part?
Sorry.
But is that the same thing as could you say women can't pitch it? Is
Right.
it the same thing as a fertility thing? Like the fertility ball?
There are some stories and some history behind that, but
Is that the same thing or no?
it is.
Oh, okay.
It is, and that's why there's a lot of tradition and understanding of why it's important to make sure you're taking care of it,
Right,
right? Thank you. No, I know.
No, because I heard you mention like twice that, keep it regular sisters and people, and then the beginning you said the female not.
Oh, yeah. And we try to share with the young ones, and I don't try to sugarcoat anything with them. It's not about like not giving them understanding about who they are and what they're doing. We even share some of the stories. Well, some of the elders would share stories about how the games were played and what bets were made back in the day. And these are bets that were a lot larger than what we're talking about in a bag of chips. They would bet their daughters, or they would bet, these types of things, to where they were. That is the ingrained mindset that they had, that I'm so putting so much on this team that this is how much I'm willing to go and what I'm willing to do to see you guys win. And so those are true stories, I guess I'll say, especially if they're coming from elders who understood that this is what was happening. And so we'd really try to press home on them that we're not just playing the game. It is more or less an extension of who we are and where we come from, but we're understanding now why it is important to respect the women's games and respect the game pieces, and not just have it and leave it around and put it somewhere because of that. That understand? Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You cut diamonds before?
No.
I have some.
Oh.
You
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
should though.
You had a question? Sorry. go ahead.
Is there a certain amount of men on a team, or it's just,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It just depends on how many you have together. One of the things that I like to do, and this is kind of just important to try and engage with the communities. And for whatever reason, I was explaining this to someone who asked earlier. For whatever reason, some communities don't get along, and that's just long-standing. Like, we don't talk to them. We don't deal with them. But you'll find in the youth that they really don't have those barriers up yet. And so what I try to do whenever we come together and have different communities is put them together in different areas. And they will actually let all of that, break that down and understand, find some kind of commonality or common ground, which I think really helps them. I'm hoping in the future to be like, we can find some common ground, even if, my family and your family don't get along, or my community and your community don't get along. And that's between, that's not for something for me to overstep and say, you guys got to get along. When we come to the games and we're having that instances where we don't have enough men for one team or vice versa, hey, you guys, I'm going to put you over here on this side. They might gripe a little, but by the end of the game, after they've really put in their all to win, or to strategize with each other, you'll find that they really walk away with a different sense of who that person was. And it's really interesting to see. But I will say, we try to even up the teams if we can, or ask someone to sit out if there's too many on one. Or sometimes one community will bring like 10 kids. We'll say, hey, you guys have 2 teams now. Here's 5 and 5. And just kind of navigate that way. So. Any other questions?
Nada.
No? Good. Yes, sir.
All right, I got one more.
You're fine.
I'm curious because she brought up like the ball kind of like being part of fertility.
Yes.
So like the stories that and I'm curious if it's the same ball. So when runners would go between villages and they're going long distances, they would be kicking, or what you're talking about, flicking the ball along. So that's the same kind of like running ball that they would use.
Oh.
So the secondary question of that is, as you were creating those things and you're creating them from things around you, are you following those stories of how they were created before, or are you trying to like work on creating them, kind of renewing the creation of it?
When we, I understand 100%. When we had that discussion and we were like, all right, how would we do this? How would someone years ago put this together? That's when it was just a couple of us together, different individuals who said, hey, let's do this. Then once people started learning that this is what we were doing, elders from different communities were like, all right, guys, I got to talk to you guys about something before you guys keep going, which they weren't trying to be negative. They were just trying to, I need you to understand that this is what I know. And that's when a lot of the stories that I had heard as a child, whether it's our not only our creation stories, but our legends and those things that carry on person to person or village to village, really started to click in my head about the pieces or the things that we're given as a people. So we had to decide, like, okay, we do want to make sure that we're engaging with our culture, our heritage. Let's understand where the elders are telling us what to get, how to get it, what to look for, and then decide together. Here's how we're going to mold it and what we're going to put into it, as opposed to how things were explained to us. So there are definitely those instances where there is some hesitancy from individuals. There are also some really clear lines too that people feel like need to be understood, that you don't play this game around the women or near where they're playing soccer, or you don't play it in and around the same, which generally we don't. And I try to respect that as an individual. And I expect that because I know the rules and how much the ladies get mad at me whenever I go near their field. So, and that's not to say they're not getting mad. They're telling you, hey, you know, you don't belong here. Go over there. So we try to make sure that the men and the boys understand that, you know, there's a reason why we don't go on their field or we don't go around, and there's a reason why they don't come or go around ours. That mutual understanding of respect, of boundaries, of, you know, of what we're responsible for and what they're responsible for. So, yeah, there's a lot of differences that we tried to make sure not we didn't change, but that we continue to say, okay, let's build on what we need to be able to see and then still have that history and understanding. So we still share, but thank you. If there are no other questions, again, my name is Juan Buendia. I come from the sales community, sales district on the Tohono O'odham Nation. I try to come here as much as possible when I can to play the games. Like I said, they do host the S-onguiwul games at the Wopoicuda. If any of you are available, I know I don't see a lot of spectators, but please do come out. It really does boost up the morale and the enthusiasm of the boys when they're out there. Akchin, I think, just did a tournament as well. Please do participate or go cheer them on. I will tell you again, when I was talking about how big it got in the years before, we had some games in Santa Vera at one point, right off and away from the mission, and it was the loudest and the most. There was so many people there, screaming and yelling and really cheering on all of the boys, that we had this really intense championship round of ball. And I felt like, I think one of the elders had actually said, really just genuinely as they were walking, that they could feel and hear, you know, everything that was being done and how it was being carried out, like cheering beyond what we were actually hearing. And I really, really want to say that I understand that there are some people who don't really take those things and like give them the respect and honor that they deserve, but it really felt like that. Like years have gone on and thousands of years have come and gone, but here we are putting our bare feet to the ground, pressing on with our culture, our heritage, our traditions, and our ancestors are cheering for us. And I feel like that's definitely where we're going to be able to draw all of our strength from as a people in general. And so I want to say thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity, and have me back again sometime, guys, please. Thank you.
Wopoicuda.